The Boeing 757 is one of Delta Airlines' preferred jets. Indeed, the Atlanta-based carrier has been putting its trust in the narrow-body for nearly 40 years. You may well have seen the SkyTeam members' 757s on your travels, but do you know why it began flying the type? Well, in today's video, we take a look at why Delta took on the Boeing 757 in the first place. Let's get started. First, it might be helpful to know some of the airline's historical context. When Delta Airlines entered the jet race in the late 1950s, company founder C.E. Woolman understood that there were going to be tough times in the years ahead. The airline experimented with several different planes in the following decades as it got to grips with the new generation of aviation. The Delta Flight Museum shares that Woolman told Aviation Week the following in January 1957. "We are buying airplanes that haven't yet been fully designed, with millions of dollars we don't have, and are going to operate them off airports that are too small, in an air traffic control system that is too slow, and we must fill them with more passengers than we've ever carried before." Moreover, Woolman expressed that he and Delta were up for the challenges that were going to come as part of the tight competition in the industry. The company had survived the Great Depression and the Second World War, so the businessman knew that the next struggle would pass. According to the Delta Flight Museum, Woolman added the following in September 1959. "Each of the many forward steps in aviation which have occurred since our company first began passenger service 30 years ago has been accompanied by its own unique problems, and the forthcoming jet era will be no exception. Delta personnel, experience and equipment enable us to face the future with confidence, and we look forward to continuing full participation in this new chapter in aviation history." Subsequently, Delta Airlines went on to experiment with several different types of jet-powered commercial aircraft. The Douglas DC-8 and the Convair 880 were the first two to arrive at the carrier's facilities. These planes helped the company get its feet off the ground in the jet world, but the DC-9 soon joined them in 1965. This model was acquired to perform jet services for routes of 500 miles or less. However, the stakes rose once again with the wide-body craze that started with the Boeing 747's passenger services introduction in 1970. Delta Airlines was the first operator with three different twin-aisle designs in its fleet, as it held the 747, the Douglas DC-10 and the Lockheed L-1011 simultaneously in 1973. Before taking on the 757, the firm also took on Boeing 727, 737 and 767 family jets. The airline turned to the 727 for its ability to land on smaller airport runways and fly short to medium-range journeys. However, Boeing also designed the 757 to replace this narrow body on these short and medium routes. Delta first commenced operations with the 727 in 1972 after its merger with Northeast Airlines. In the following year, it also took on more units. Being the first Boeing narrow-body flown by the carrier, Delta became more familiar with the manufacturer's jets and knew it could trust it for future upgrades. Over a decade later, Delta received its first Boeing 757 delivery. The aircraft bore the registration November 602 Delta Lima, and this airframe arrived in Georgia on November 5, 1984. This would mark the beginning of a long-term relationship between the airline and the 757. For its time, the 757 was full of technological advancements and a notable leap forward from older, similar-sized aircraft. Delta highlights how this 757-200's wings and engines came with modern technology to give the best fuel mileage of any standard body plane in the few years before its arrival at the company. Moreover, on a 500-mile flight, the jet provided approximately 45% better fuel efficiency than the 727. The aircraft could also fit 187 passengers on board, which was more than the 148 that the 727 could service. Thanks to its glass cockpit, it also needed fewer pilots than its predecessor, with just 2 on the flight deck rather than 3. Delta would be the first to adopt Pratt & Whitney PW2037 engines that came with the arrival of its first unit. These new additions were more efficient than the earlier JT10D Pratt & Whitney engines that were previously being offered on the jet. Overall, Delta's president and CEO at the time, Ron Allen, said that these overhauls were worth waiting for. The new wing design saw the fitting of double-slotted trailing edge flaps as well as full-span leading edge slats. These factors made takeoffs with a full cabin possible, while simultaneously needing less runway space. These modern revisions enabled Delta Airlines' Boeing 757-200s to cruise at higher altitudes than the 727s that had preceded them. In turn, this provided more significant fuel savings and the use of higher airways. In terms of performance, the 757 could hit speeds of 530 miles per hour and had a range of 2,302 nautical miles. Meanwhile, the extended range version could travel up to 3,927 nautical miles. Altogether, with the jet age still in its relative infancy, it took some years for Delta Airlines to be able to find and stick to jet-powered commercial aircraft designs that it liked. As we've seen earlier in this particular video, several different jetliner designs came and went before the arrival of the Boeing 757 at Delta. However, the carrier has shown its commitment to this narrow body, with it still making up a significant portion of its fleet. Delta would also go on to be one of the few airlines to operate the stretched fuselage 757-300 model. It has now been almost 39 years since the first passenger service with a Delta 757 on December 1, 1984, which was an operation from Atlanta, Georgia to Dayton, Ohio, via Birmingham, Alabama. According to CHAviation.com, Delta Airlines still has a fairly impressive 127 Boeing 757 family aircraft on its books today. The majority of these are examples of the standard 757-200, with 111 present at an average age of about 27 years old, compared to a fleet-wide mean figure of 15 years. Data from Aeroloper shows that Delta has 4 different two-class configurations for the type, with between 168 and 199 seats. Out of its largest hub at Atlanta, Delta flies the 757-200 to international destinations like Bogotá, Colombia, Guanacaste and San Jose in Costa Rica, Quito, Ecuador, Guatemala City, Guatemala, and more. Clearly, Delta likes to send its 757s to South and Central America. Additionally, as we've already noted, Delta remains a rare operator of the longer 757-300 model, with 16 examples still in its fleet today. These aircraft are a little younger than the carrier's 757-200s at an average of just under 21 years of age. 15 of these flying pencils are currently active, with the other undergoing maintenance at the time of this video's production. These aircraft all feature the same seating configuration, which has 24 business and 210 economy class seats. 757-300s appear to be mainly deployed on domestic services. From Atlanta, these -300s fly to cities like San Diego, San Francisco, Seattle, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and Orlando. What do you make of Delta Airlines' relationship with the Boeing 757? Have you ever flown on one of these aircraft? Let us know your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles every week. If you're looking for the latest aviation news and insights, visit simpleflying.com.